Aloha. Today I wanted to talk about two terms that are very kind of rich in the individual and the collective experience. And I've mentioned these two terms in other videos, but I wanted to lump them together and also expand upon the effects that these two terms have on consciousness as a whole, individually and collectively. So basically it's desire and imagination. Starting off with the synthetic universe, leading off of the last video where I was actually talking about stuff. The synthetic universe is designed to where we don't, as a collective and as individuals, do not engage in our consciousness. We do not engage in the creation factor of our reality because we are so enveloped by the survival complex of the mainstream reality that we've been this animalistic design, this animalistic behavior that is connected to everything that is mainstream, mainly comes from the monkey evolution program. And it just really expands from there. The heliocentric model separates us from nature, demonizing the ancestors and calling them primitive and savages, separates us from understanding the balances that they had in nature, the expansions of consciousness that they had during their times, and how we are a manifestation of that, like how we are an expansion of that, how we have a responsibility in so many ways, at least energetically, to reconnect with those roots and activate something that never was in our own way. That's who we are individually. That's the unconditional love expression that each individual is and has the opportunity to tap into. That's what we all are doing in our own way, and collectively we have the potential to do that. This is why the synthetic universe is so designed on manipulating your essence, your lack of engagement in consciousness to the umpteenth degree, down to how you really don't understand the universe in which you are existing, the dimension which you exist in, the infinite space that you exist as. This is the fear of death, which is ultimately the fear of life, because if you're living constantly in the fear of death, then you're not really living. So you're basically in this in-between realm of nothingness, constantly engaging in your reality on a low vibration. This is the intention of this program of mind control, separating you from understanding the relationships to the earth plane, separating you from nature, separating you from your ancestors, separating you from your family. Technology is a big part of this. The mainstream perspective of reality is another big part of this. If we don't understand our past, we will never understand what is going on in the present moment, and we will never understand what is happening, what weaken our true potential for the future. An example of this in relation to imagination and desire and the soul essence of each individual is, I was just thinking about this yesterday, back in the 80s and the 90s, when I was a kid, we didn't have all this Match.com and eHarmony and Tinder and all these dating websites. And now I can't listen to Pandora without hearing a Match.com commercial every 10 minutes or 15 minutes. What does that do to the individual and the collective overall? Just think about how that affects the the consciousness of humanity just by it existing, not even the effects of it individually, but just by it existing. Back in the 80s and 90s, this stuff didn't exist. People weren't thinking about the shallow relationship sort of meet people this quickly. Like it has to be something that the reproductive program is a big part of locking you into the grid, just like the marriage program, just like the gay agenda. It's all about locking you in and separating you in some kind of way. That all of these, the vanity, the technology, it's locking you into a version of reality that is ultimately not natural. Because if you're so out of balance, you're basically in a space of chaos. So if your conscious reality is bombarded by desire and imagination based upon the physical reality, then you will not look into the essence beyond those vibrations of desire. You won't look into the essence of being intuitively connected to yourself and intuitively connected to whoever it is that you're to be with. You won't come at it from, for example, purposes to stay like on a focus, you won't come at a relationship from a soul essence perspective. You'll just come at it from the basic guidelines that are put out there for you by Match.com and eHarmony and all that other bullshit. It's structured. It's structuring humanity, structuring consciousness, putting it in a box, just like technology does, just like they're trying to tell you that consciousness is about like it can be programmed by computer programmers, and then they can create artificial intelligence that could eventually be conscious. So since consciousness is just subjected to whatever computer programmers can program, then that means humanity is actually the god of consciousness, because then they can just reproduce it and call it AI, and then it could just be conscious now. So this is how this whole program is making a king and a god out of itself. You just buy into whatever the mainstream tells you, and since they have so many followers, since they have so many since they have so much influence on humanity and the individual, then we make these truths. These are artificial truths, and the same way the heliocentric model gets put together, in the same way the synthetic universe gets put together inside of each individual. So you're actually living your human experience vicariously, whether you're living vicariously through the new age perspective, or you're living vicariously through the mainstream reality, or you're living vicariously through the gladiator arena. That's what ESPN is. When all these men are watching these grown-ass men play baseball, basketball, and football and make millions of dollars, they're tapping into that child mind, and they're actually living that experience, which is dumbing down and making them passive in that whole, like, okay, well, I got my little fix. It turns it into like a drug. And so your eyes are desiring to be like something. So you're getting like a movie makes you feel like a superhero. If you watch a superhero movie when you leave, I know a lot of people feel this when they get enveloped by the movie. When you walk out of the movie theater, there's kind of this cloud around you that you're in the movie. Like when you're walking out to your car, the movie's still part of you. Like you feel like you're in like John Wick 2 or something. Like you feel like there's some fucking guy's gonna come around the corner and you're just gonna pull out your gun real quick like John Wick and do that whole thing, or a superhero movie. Like it's playing with the energies and the vibrations of your mind, your body, and your soul all at the same time. So subconsciously, we are being programmed by these, like the mainstream media does this every day. So that same cloud that you get enveloped in every day, or when you go into a movie, the same cloud is the same effect of what social media and the mainstream news and local news has on people every single day. So every single day, we consume ourselves with these clouds over and over and over again. The cloud of political perspectives, or the cloud of the university system, the cloud of being the manager of Office Depot, the cloud of the public education system, the cloud of running the streets, the cloud of being a gangster, the cloud of, being a gladiator or $1 million, whatever it is. All of these clouds, we consume ourselves in our reality, and all of it is fake. All of this shit is of a low ass vibration. Like I was saying in, 3 videos ago, talking about there are no true bosses. Like when people talk, oh, I'm a boss. Oh, I'm a boss. Oh, all I do is win, win, win. Like all that shit. Like it's all fake. All of this is based upon a slave mentality. So people are celebrating low vibrations. People are celebrating being gods and kings in a synthetic universe. It's like being the king of, the cereal aisle in Safeway. It's like, what the fuck are you? You're not. It's fake. Like, not only is it fake, it's actually killing people. So all these people who are making gangster rap and all this other shit and think they're hard and all this other stuff, if you're signed to any label, who the fuck owns that label? Who owns you? Who owns the money? Who made the money? Whose faces are on that money? Everything that you think you are is an illusion, down to the very natures of the synthetic universe that you can't even perceive that is existing, and in fact defend it. This is when people start defending the heliocentric model. You're actually defending NASA and defending the government and defending the colonial program, the colonial agenda. But we don't see it like that because we're so consumed by our own desires, consumed by our own perspectives, and consumed by our own synthetic versions of imagination. We don't go any further than what's put in front of us by these illusionists, like CNN purchasing 16 million fake Twitter followers. That's everybody. That's everybody in the mainstream. All of that is purchased. When they put stuff on trending and they make these people famous, that is on. They're making it on purpose. These celebrities, these dead soul ass celebrities, these intellectually dead celebrities, and songwriters and so-called musicians and so-called artists in the music industry, lyrically and what's the word? Like talent-wise, they're dead. A lot of them are dead, and if they're not dead, they're like at the vibration of a box of cereal. It's ridiculous. But since they are famous, people worship that. So you're worshiping what somebody is telling you to worship. The mainstream is a religion, just as NASA and the heliocentric model and the university system is a religion. You just don't call it a religion because it's not labeling itself as a religion in order to not be revealed for what it truly is. When they don't label it as such, then you allow it to be because you think it's normal, because you think it's different than what the old labels used to be. It's easy to understand the old religious crusades. It's easy to understand the old kings and queens who used to conquer lands. And the reason why it changed only in our perspective of change is because they stopped labeling them as such. So you don't have a Queen of America. You have a President of the United States of America. It's compartmentalizing your perspective, shrinking down your perspective, and fluffing it up. It's like adding sprinkles on a pile of dog shit and telling you it's a donut, an organic donut that you're supposed to eat. And you're like, man, this is shit. And they're like, yeah, but there's sprinkles on it, so other people don't have sprinkles, so you better just cherish the sprinkles that you have. You're like, but this is a pile of shit. No, you're un-American. So this is how this whole thing is. And since you have kings and queens of an illusion, and if you go against that system, which is supposed to be the peak of so-called human evolution, the monkey evolution program, then people are literally living in this hopeless vibration. If you take away their generic illusory kingdom, then they really have nothing. They have no castle. They have no shelter. They have no protection, which is why people are living in this fear vibration, fear of letting it go. They can't let that system go because they are afraid of the rain, afraid of nature, afraid of being reconnected with something that is in their head primitive and savage. This is why when you start talking about flat earth and people who don't have any kind of understanding of it, they have that same response. I see in the comment sections on people's videos all the time, that same response of, I can't believe people think the earth is flat. Did we just go back in time 1,000 or 500 years? Like, what do people really think is going on? Like, are we de-evolving when people are talking about, like, this is how, because people believe that the way humanity is today is the peak of human evolution. People actually think, because the evolution theory from the monkey mind and the heliocentric model, the Big Bang, and so on and so forth, that's so ingrained in how we perceive our reality and our universe that we just allow it to be. And then we add it on to everything else. So this way that we perceive our reality is completely synthetic. And it's trying to activate the so-called powers that be. So what I was talking about as far as like desire and imagination, our imagination, which is your I Magi, the nation of I Magi, you yourself connected with everything, your magic, your imagination, your perspective on reality, the way you produce music, the way you think, your soul imagination. When that imagination is limited to stuff like profit and the physical reality, you're actually playing with the way the universe expands itself, because we are not really going into the depths of our maximum potential. So when I hear people talking about like ideas, like people talk about that, oh, that's $1 million idea. Too bad we can't do it because we don't have such and such and such and such. And in order to do this, you need money. It's like, just like the effect that I mentioned earlier about all of these Match.com and eHarmony, all of that, like how that affects consciousness through relationships, the individual relationship with themselves and the relationship that people have with their loved one. The same thing goes with your relationship to imagination. If your imagination is stinted, or what is the word, like limited by, there's a better word than that, but it's the same thing, limited by profit, then individually and even in a community or a culture, or think of it even on a larger scale, if it's limited by profit, then how many inventions are not being made? How many How many cures for diseases are not being released? Because that stuff's already been done. And it's because, like, the cancer industry does this openly. They tell you that you cannot cure cancer or treat cancer unless you're treating it the way that they tell you to treat it. The system itself, because the system needs to make money off of that cancer. So they have to make you healing people literally illegal. So it's a profit off of death. It's a profit off of lack of imagination. It's a profit off of the lack of expansion of consciousness. This is what this entire system is about. This is why when I talk about the flat earth, I'm more focusing on the human perspective, the human storyline. Because even if everybody thinks of this place as a flat earth and they realize the deception of the heliocentric model, the globe, and all that other stuff, it doesn't matter if you are still on a plane of existence full of slaves who are just going to allow the mainstream system to tell them what their reality is. If you constantly just believe that, then you're just going to make an expansion of the illusion. So they'll just expand it, and then you'll just have more people not thinking for themselves, more people desiring slave masters to do something for them, more people giving their imagination away to a profit-based consciousness, which is going to be limited and allow so-called powers that be to just expand around the storyline. So it's about progress. The expansion of consciousness is being affected by the way humanity engages in its reality. When we desire the physical reality, we are separating ourselves from the soul essence of who and what we are. So most people who listen to this channel understand that we are more of the soul essence than of the physical reality. Like the physical reality from a vibrations perspective or a frequency perspective, it's a low vibration. Your soul, your thought patterns, your imagination, they think so quickly that it's a faster vibration than the physical reality. But in order to anchor those higher vibrations, we have the balance of this human experience. So this is how the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious, like I was saying in this conversation I was having with a friend of mine about the Ram and the Ram, talking about the previous video about the Ram and the Ram, the subconscious and the conscious reality, the infinite space and the finite space, and how those two are blended into the present moment for us to actually be creators of our present moment. But we get so bogged down by the past, the artificial past, and we get so our so-called future, our infinite future gets bombarded, our potential gets bombarded by this false futurism of SpaceX, NASA, transhumanism, CERN technology, all this other stuff that they're telling you is really about what we're about. But they're still coming from the monkey evolution Big Bang perspective. So it's inherently a limitation. So the expansion of that is like the New Age program. The New Age is like a double down on the original separation program and in order to close the gaps of that double down lack of understanding, this is where this channeling energy comes in and replaces your intuition, that which already exists inside of you, your natural connection to what is beyond this physical reality. The channelers come in, and these secret space program perspectives come in and completely bombard your reality with something that's external. The secret space program and the secret space program technology, all of that is external. You yourself are a technology. Like your body, your relationship between the conscious and the subconscious reality, your mind, your soul, essence, your relationship between the soul and the mind and the mind and the body and the body and the mind, all of these relationships, that's an actual technology that this system has zero understanding of, because it comes from the reality, or the half-assed at best reality, of the science, so-called scientific perspective, but it's just a scientism perspective. It completely cuts out the relationship of alchemy. Alchemy is the relationship between the spirit and true science. So this is what our ancestors understood in ancient Kemet and the Mayans and the Inca and so on and so forth. This is why they have all the same cosmology. They have all the same so-called creation myths. They have all of these similar storylines. This is why those people are demonized. This is why the descendants of the ancestors are demonized on the streets today and everywhere else, because what needs to be worshipped is the illusion, the synthetic universe, the vicarious human experience, in order to maintain the illusion of kings, gods, and kings, these demigods and kings, through this half-assed at best reality. The only way that can happen is if you dumb down people and have them live through you. So this is where all this futurism comes from. The same thing comes from channeling. They're selling people half-assed realities and telling them that this is it because we say the words unconditional love so many times. That's all you need to know. It's just about unconditional love, and don't think about anything else. So if you have a destructive program who means to enslave people, if they can enslave you with fear, then best believe they're going to try to enslave you with the idea of unconditional love through passivity, because the level of consciousness of people has expanded out of that fear vibration. So they sell you this artificial version of interacting with your experience, and just say, well, and just keep these people in this unconditional love perspective, and then don't it's the same way that when you're caught up in fear, when you're caught up in the fear of an asteroid or a meteor destroying us, or a nuclear weapons war like the World War, or you're caught up in all of these extreme storylines that get promoted by Hollywood. So that's the cloud, like I was talking about earlier. Excuse me. When you're caught up in that cloud, that's the extreme vibrations of fear. So you're living in the false future in order to maintain a dumbed down and passive vibration, so that so-called controllers, so-called powers that be, can own your moment. And they own your moment even more when they cut the roots out of your connections to your ancestors. So your moment is destroyed because you have no roots and you have no hope or engagement in the so-called future, because all of that is provided for you by your so-called caretakers of this evolved system in the university and so on and so forth. So the old way was to sell you the Hollywood version of extremes from a fear vibration, a low vibration. The new way, the so-called new age and so-called new world order way to control people, is going to be to sell you the extremes of love. This is what the new age program is selling right now with all this. It's all about love and light. It's all about humanity, and it's all about just being one with everything and everybody, and unity and all this other. So they sell you all this stuff, and that all feels really good. You're like, yeah, man, that's really good stuff. And like, I fell for this stuff too. I was like, like stamping hearts on dollar bills, and just until I realized, like, wait a second, this shit, there's something more than this. Like, this system isn't going to just stop because everybody's eating rainbows and gumdrops and thinking about unconditional love. It's not going to stop. Like, you actually need to engage in the balances of this reality in order to transition into something that's balanced, between a healthy balance individually and collectively, between the lightest of the light and the darkest of the dark, in order to maintain like a natural expansion of consciousness. This new age shit is not natural. They're trying to sell it to you as natural. The new age love and light program is as unnatural as the old destructive program of the military and prison industrial complex. It's just another version of extreme in order to make you feel hopeless and allow the system to just do whatever it is that it's going to do. That's another version of dumbing down. So channeling maintains that program from something that we don't completely understand. So we just believe it because we haven't had any taste of unconditional love. We haven't had any taste of something of a positive vibration. So since Oprah is talking with Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Abraham Hicks, and these are all channelers and gurus and teachers, then things must be changing, right? No. Oprah is still waving that magic wand of, you shut the fuck up. I'm in charge here. I'm part of this system. And that's just how it's going to be. Everything else doesn't matter. As long as the haves have and the have-nots have nothing. So it's just another form. So these channelers maintain that perspective. The new age, and that energy and that vibration of consciousness, the new age does it, and it's all about limitation, and they're selling it to you as if it's everything. And it's no, like I said in the second to the last statement down here, it's no different than the whitewashing of humanity with the White Jesus program, the Hollywood program. It's like, you need to act this way. If you don't act this way, if you don't talk this way, this shit happens today. Even everywhere you go, like, you won't realize this unless you're like a non-white person, to the umpteenth degree. But it's so, it's sad. It's actually sick. It makes me sick to my stomach when I hear this shit. And all I can do a lot of the times is just laugh and walk away. Or if I'm in the mood, I'll give somebody a quick look, like with my eyes. I'll speak with my eyes and tell them, you know what? Get the fuck out my face with that. Don't talk to me like this, like you're in charge of something. Like, what is wrong with you? So it's this sense of entitlement. It's this sense of, it's the privilege. It's the privilege of being more synthetically evolved than the melanated people. Ultimately, that's what the entire supremacy program is about. So this is why we have the Barbie program, the White Jesus program, the White Hollywood program, your White House, your everything like that. And it's not just of today. It's not. I'm not making this stuff up. Like I said, if this is one of your first videos seeing of mine, and you don't understand the racism program, look into Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. I made a number of playlists that have a bunch of examples. And even if you are listening to this channel, you haven't looked at the playlist, I sectioned out a lot of these videos in different categories, so to make it easier, because I have over like 500 and something videos now. So there's a lot of information out there that's talking about this stuff, which is why I speak so freely on this, because this is not anything that I'm making up. I did not create any of this stuff. That is the information or these perspectives that are coming. This is all coming from teachers, my teachers, like the teachers. I'm just sharing information to share from how I've interpreted what my teachers and the information that I've understood through my experience in life. That's largely what it comes from. It's like polishing it up with what my ancestors have already interpreted and then sharing my experience. It's like 50-50. And then I share that with people in order to help out. And that's how I make music. This is my own form of music. So my form of music, giving you that example of my form of music, I wasn't allowed to tap into this space when I was consumed by the military. Like when I was in the military, that I just needed to, like, the military is a perfect example of what happens to civilians. Civilians, when you're in the military, they pretty much make you want to get married and want to have a baby in order to get out of the barracks, in order to get paid. Like, you get paid more when you have a dependent. You get paid more when you get married. You get the opportunity to move out of the barracks when you first get into the military, in whatever service it is. You get paid more when you give more of your life away, like these bonuses or these re-enlistment things. Like, all of this is a design. Like, the military program is being translated into or installed into the civilian population. It's a test program. So they test on all of these soldiers. They test on all these vaccines and the chip that's in your ID card. All of this stuff is a test program in order to make the system itself to be more worshipped. So they can't sell you this technology. They can't sell you these so-called vaccines and all this stuff if it hasn't already been tested to hit that sweet spot of, okay, this will destroy just enough, but keep people alive just enough to keep people in this particular vibration. This is what the medical industry is. This is what the cancer industry is. This is what your genetically modified foods are. This is what that's like the definition of genetically modified foods. It's like, sell you something that will keep you just enough alive to be a slave, dumbed down psychologically with all this sugar, all of this depressive, the prescription drugs, dumb you down just enough to not question your reality, to be passive, to not do anything that will challenge the system, but will still allow you to function and keep the motors running, keep the robots working, keep the technology flowing. And all of it's based upon the separation from nature. Like I was explaining to a friend of mine, these energies, like this, like the channeling energy, what I'm calling like this non-physical consciousness that has separated itself from the Most High Spirit, the energies of creation, and has created itself to be the kings of limitation, the kings and queens of the limitation universe. So when you dumb down everything and you maintain a space inside each individual and the collective as a whole that is not about creation and maximum potential, then you are actually creating this null and void, this nothingness, expansion of consciousness, this nothing happens, nothing moves. It's a space of limbo. And it's all based upon this shallow representation and understandings of who and what we are. So back to the desires, like when you're constantly bombarded by the desires of the physical reality, and you live and die with the desires of the physical reality, then you are actually, in a sense, trapping yourself in the synthetic universe. So if you live and die desiring the physical reality, you're living and dying and the way it's promoted by the system, then that's an illusion. And you're worshiping, there's a god of that illusion, whoever created that illusion. So if it affects like individuals, and it affects the mass consciousness. So this has been going on for generations, for centuries, for so many layers or frequencies of human consciousness that people are now. This is the true breaking of that mind control program, where the conscious, like our actual expansion of consciousness or evolution of consciousness, is to where we can actually say, hey, you know what, this is garbage, this is all a lie, all of this, there's something more than this. We're no longer going to be subjected to your illusions. There's something more. And in order to understand what that something more is, we have to challenge the entire fabric of the universe itself, this illusion that has been presented to us, including the heliocentric model and technology. This is all stuff to expand the illusion. CERN and technology, that's all to expand the illusion and maintain low vibrations and maintain shallow desires. This is why every kid and every adult has a damn smartphone. Everybody has some kind of something in their hand that is only about this out of balance, patriarchal program, masculine based system. There's no balances between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the yin and the yang, the electric and the magnetic, the conscious and the subconscious. There's no understanding of your dreams. There's no understanding of the conscious reality, because it's all about dominance, that out of balanced masculine perspective. It's the worshiping of death and separation. So now that people are coming back to it, we're realizing that this something more exists inside of everybody. And a part of the new age programming is to tell you that, well, this change, this shift really means and looks like this. So this is this unconditional love. Another this is the way they're saying that the balances of the masculine and the feminine actually is androgyny, and this is why the LGBT community is being so amplified and all this other. No, that's a part of the separation from nature programming. The divine masculine and the divine feminine is not limited, watered down to this generic ass perspective of androgyny and people who are gay or in the LGBT, all that stuff. That doesn't mean that they're connecting with their balances more than anybody else. That is the illusion that's being sold to people to maintain imbalances and separation from nature. The true connections of the divine masculine and the divine feminine are mirrored by what nature's relationship is between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. That's the true amplification and the tuning into this shifting of consciousness. The watering down of the divine masculine and the divine feminine to this androgynous fake definition of what's really going on here is another version to control people. This is why the gay agenda is being so amplified, because it makes passive feminine men and it makes masculine women. And that completely throws the entire system through upside down and backwards. So you have women trying to be like men, thinking that's how you become balanced, and then you have men trying to be like women, saying to themselves, "Oh, well, this is how you become balanced." No, there's differences on purpose, just as there are differences in cultures on purpose. There's a purpose and a beautiful meaning with the balances of our cultures, our different various groups of people. This is why this whole New Age program is about, it's just about humanity and unity and oneness, because they don't want you to tap into your ancestral fire and burn this illusory system to the ground. This is why this system is creating all of these fake ass definitions of what is happening naturally. This is why the system is destroying the family with technology, with the way the society is run, the single mother program in the minority communities, the way they're the gym rat perspective, everything focusing on the physical reality. All of this is a design to throw a monkey wrench in the program of nature and to sell it back to you half priced so you can buy into the illusion. They sell you a half priced illusion and sell it to you as the end all be all of your reality. Because if you buy into that half-priced, half-assed illusion, that generic illusion, then that will maintain sickness and disease, separation from nature, lack of understanding, understanding, and overstanding of the universe as a whole and who you are as a whole beyond the physical reality, so that these non-physical beings or entities can maintain dominance over your non-physical essence by trapping you in the desires and the imaginations of the physical reality. So the imagination is bombarded by physical reality. Your desires are bombarded by the physical reality. And since you limit yourself to the profit base within the physical reality, the dream within the dream, then it's just another version of separation. And that ultimately affects consciousness as a whole, individually and collectively. Like I said in previous videos, how many people are working at Home Depot, how many Mozarts and Beethovens and Bachs and Debussy's are working at Office Depot and Home Depot and all these other depots around the world, or who are trapped in the lack of even... See, the same way people are psychologically trapped in this program in the United States with like the Home Depot and that American dream, it has the same effect as people who are being starved and who don't have clean water or living impoverished around the world. It has the same effect. We don't have any resources. In all of this, you don't have any intellectual resources when you limit yourself to the imagination and the desires of the physical reality. And you don't have any actual physical resources or the energy to actually do anything productive when you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get a bowl of rice for your babies. You're just trying to get through this day, get to the next day. And in order to do that, you got to go to work, you got to do this, you got to do that. That's the design of this entire system. So people, this is why I don't judge people for doing whatever it is that they're doing. Do what you got to do to balance out this system the way it is, to get by the way you're getting by. And ultimately, because this is a lifelong thing, like this shift, this transition is going to be going on for many generations. It's only now being realized, but it's going to be many generations before this stuff kicks into gear. We're shifting from the physical to the non-physical to the infinite space. It's not going to happen overnight, and it sure as hell ain't going to happen from some basic ass understanding of reality, like like limiting yourself to the new age, like, oh, well, as soon as disclosure happens, as soon as they start talking about aliens, everything will be okay. Or as soon as they start talking about flat earth, everything will be okay. No, the fuck it won't. The level of consciousness will still be the same. And if it does make some huge shift, it will be layered with all kinds of chaotic energies, because people need to do this naturally. It has to be a natural process. Like, you can't force anybody to to start looking into flat earth. You can't force anybody to stop hating themselves from like all the conditioning that has been manipulated from the past. It has to happen naturally. People have to first acknowledge it. Then they have to have the drive to do it themselves, and then actually do it. Like, there's a whole bunch of layers into the expansion of whatever kind of system it is, and there's so much damn density going on through these generations that we're still in that cleaning out all that other stuff. So when people are getting into this creation mode of, well, the flat earth is just going to go mainstream and then everything will be okay. It's like, no, it won't. It can actually get worse. Just the same way like the new age. It can actually get worse in a way, because that means that this program is just trying to expand itself. So, yeah, it's not completely cut and dry with the whole like worse, like if it get worse, because people will start thinking on a higher vibration. But in the long run, if it doesn't happen naturally, that's what I mean by getting worse. Like, it might seem like it's getting better now, but that's just like the Civil Rights Act back in the day. It's like, oh, well, progress is happening. Really? Look at the state of humanity today. And tell me that people weren't thinking about the Civil Rights Act the same way that they're thinking about back then, that they're thinking about flat earth and the new age agenda today. Like, that's going to fix everything? No, this shit has to happen naturally progress. And the more we connect with our ancestors and who and what we are on every level, from the roots to the present moment, all the way to our maximum potential, outside of the control grid, that's the natural space, how I'm seeing it. So the physical desires slow time. They actually slow time. When you slow consciousness by the imagination being manipulated by profit, the desires being focused into the physical perspective and the profit perspective, it's actually solidifying, adding density to consciousness. So that's how these entities live off of our lack of life and live in our gaps in our reality. So when we are locked into the dense time, we are locked out of the higher spiritual frequencies, the actual progress of human expansion. It's not about humanity is not about the the physical inventions. It's more about in fact, a better example is the physical inventions first come from the spiritual fire of being able to think on that level, then translating that into the mind vibration, then it manifests into the physical reality. If you have no drive, if you are hopeless, if you have no fire in your soul, then you will not have any. That's the fuel to your mind. And if you have no mind, which is what the public education system is designed to make you just dull and just drab, then you won't create anything in the physical reality. So we are largely more non-physical than we are physical. So when we are bombarded by the physical reality, like the Match.com stuff, like I was saying, and the vanity, the materialism, the technology, the secret space program, the heliocentric, dead planets, physical planets perspective, then that's when the consciousness is actually being manipulated to slow time through slowing consciousness. And when you slow time and slow consciousness, you're dumbing down the vibrations of the universe as a whole. This is where the synthetic universe gets generated by our low vibrating consciousness. We experience consciousness through the way our vibrations are individually and collectively. We experience the universe through the level of consciousness that we are individually and collectively. And if we allow these lower vibrating entities to convince us that our reality is based upon what they tell us our reality is based upon, then they can maintain, the so-called they can maintain a universal vibration that allows those entities or individuals to be gods and kings of a synthetic universe that we have been duped into believing as our reality. That's why we are bombarded by the desire program, the lack of imagination program, and the physical reality as a whole. And this is why we are separated from everything on the basic scales of nature, the basic representations of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. This is why the way Christianity is sold to the mainstream Christianity, the mainstream religions as a whole are sold to separate you, to create a middleman between you and your infinite space, you and the Most High, to trap you in that in-between reality. And you believe it, just like you believe Hollywood, just like you're in that cloud after a movie. You're in that cloud of, ooh, that was action-packed. I actually felt like I was in that movie. We believe it because it's being presented to us as reality. So the news does the same thing every day, creating the synthetic universe, selling it back to us, selling us out of our natural vibrations. So that's pretty much all I had for this video. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.